Hi, everybody. So this week we have the interview I've been waiting for with Robert Sardello, my dear friend and teacher. And I think we're going to have a kind of freewheeling, unconventional interview. Maybe we should just start with that quote, Robert. Would you be kind enough to read it to us?
Yeah, hi. This is a quotation by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, the astounding Russian dissident. He says, we cannot, in order to live, not live. That's a good theme.
Yeah. And we seem to be hell-bent on not living.
Yeah. But using the tools of not living to try to live.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it's the tools of everything, including a little bit what we're doing right here. Everything is scripted. There is nothing anymore that is not scripted. Whether it's politics or, or entertainment or everything, scripted.
Mm-hmm.
We're following a script, which is one of the tools of destruction, acting as if it's a way to live, to be free.
Mm-hmm.
It's a question of what is freedom, particularly important for us. And it is so amazing and important that America is the land of freedom. But it was the first people here were prisoners who, the moment they landed, made the people here prisoners.
Right.
And but that means we never were able to experience the living freedom that is this particular land, because we have missed experiencing Earth. The Earth we know is a scripted Earth.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Earth over there to be, used for its so-called, or nature is called resources, and all of that kind of thing.
And was that something unique to us coming here? I mean, we are in effect, we are a post-indigenous people here.
Yeah.
And so was this mentality, had the world seen this before?
I don't know. I imagine that it happens in many places where the indigenous people are. But we're here. We're here and have to look at it, what is happening here. Because this is a unique moment we're in, because we're in the process of losing everything. That's until we lose everything, it is actually not possible to find freedom.
Mm. 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 And what is freedom in relation to this place? Why this place, this earth?
Well, that can't be answered because it is something that is given to evolve by engagement that very slowly reveals itself
Mm-hmm.
by doing it, by being here and engaging. And so it's not a matter of intent or philosophy or certainly not theology. It's we weren't supposed to know, and that's maybe another problem is that not having the ability to not know. I mean, so that again, America immediately turned into knowing what they're after. And it's, immediately became gold and it became greed, and that it became embedded in really the unconscious and not unconscious at all purpose of this place.
Mm-hmm.
But that's again that's that's an overlay.
Right.
Uh, but I don't know. This particular time is different. I mean, it really feels different. I don't know. There's been threats before, certainly, but those threats have always been met by one of the instruments uh, uh, of destruction, by wars or opposition or you know uh, or by what's happening now, distractions.
Yeah. And so somehow this threat or this reality is almost like we don't have an other to project onto. I mean, we can struggle, we can try with the racism and the virus and all that, but there's something more whole, there's no place to go. There's
The possibility that there is no place to go. The question is, it's either a moment of initiation into the true mystery of this place, or the falseness that we have lived will all simply be taken to a different level. A much, 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 much more difficult level of forces of opposition, but they have now, sort of super instruments, of technology and ways of lying.
yeah.
I mean, but what's interesting is they're exposed one after another right now, but then, they also get covered, or there is this, it's not like once they begin to be uncovered, everybody says, oh, yes.
Right. There's no unraveling.
There's not an unraveling.
It's just the next thing.
Yeah. But it could be, I mean, it's really a total possibility of being an unraveling. It will be, certainly the end of America as the primary imagination that everyone holds to. That's for sure the end of that.
Mm-hmm.
Except this question of distractions. I mean, you know, including not only entertainment and politics, and I don't actually know anything that is not a distraction, because it is this attempt to use these instruments of destruction as if they were instruments of life. That includes, you know, taking things and substances and going to these crazy places like Mars and the moon and
Right.
all of that.
But it seems that we are at a place where you see this, especially with children now, where they can, for lack of a better term, they can participate in the life of machines.
Yeah.
So there's an enchantment about the machines, about this other world you're talking about, that is altogether different than what it means to participate in the life of the beings of the earth. Yeah. So there's something like we can psychically relate to these machines in some sort of false way, even as we become more and more separated from the earth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. That's exactly what's happening, because to find freedom requires sacrificing everything, including the possibility of losing one's life.
Mm-hmm.
Then, only then is there a moment of decision.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's in that moment of a decision. I mean, it can be, you know, individual and in that way, but for us right now, it's this very large moment of decision.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And see, I like the unrest and the demonstrations where there are people very clearly willing to give their lives. Boy, that's everything.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you know, the thing is, being in prison is where you actually experience life most intensely. Like there's very few suicides in prison because life is so intense.
Yeah, that's right. I find it so telling that I have the richest conversations in a prison.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I felt that one when I was there with you in Maine, and we went.
Yeah.
And prison, it was astounding. At the time, I mean, it is openness, but it's for a long time, it can be openness for new experiences.
Mm-hmm. So the initiatory willingness to be towards death, sound like Heidegger or something there, but that's so interesting because looked at from another way, the materialism of our culture, or civilization, I should say, is a death civilization, meaning
Yes.
we value refrigerators and cars more than beings.
Yes.
So it's like we need to be towards death in a death culture.
Yes, that's true. For a long, long time, we have lived. The underworld is here.
Mm.
It's all around us. It's not, down somewhere, and it's all around us. And now here's the other thing that Solzhenitsyn says that's very, very, very astounding and helpful. It's not like, if I say, any awakening of, we haven't yet said what freedom consists of, but requires losing everything. But that doesn't mean we give up our desires and our goals and our interests. It doesn't mean giving any of that up. That would actually be one of the things that look like life but is not life. It's called religion in a certain way, So, but that's not required. Well, what's only required is the falseness of thinking whatever it is that we want and desire and need will make us free. If I had that job, I would be free. If I were doing this, I would be free. If I were, it's not. That's not. Yeah. But that's then in the way the tricky part. How to hold inwardly our needs and desires and wants and goals, but just by being able to concentrate on them, but not concentrating on how to get them.
Right.
Yeah, because well, it wasn't Solzhenitsyn only, but with prisoners everywhere, and in something very, very mysterious happens, which is that for example, in the Nazi camps, those who held on to living and trying to survive and thinking of ways to get out were the ones who perished primarily. Primarily, they did not live. The ones who held the one thing as important, which is their soul. Beyond anything else, they held to the sense of soul, to the sense of heart. Then something mysterious begins to happen, which is it's quite beautiful, which is mysterious things occur that bring about things in the world that are, like I remember one story in the prison camps where a physicist was trying to work out, certain physics problems in that prison, and but he needed a book, a very particular book that had equations that he couldn't recall. And but he was someone who, so that was like something held, but he didn't have the sense this is going to free me. Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. But he held to this inner sense of the life of the soul, the warmth of the heart. And you know what? That book appeared in the prison. Honestly, somebody had that book.
Mm-hmm.
You see, but that happened. I mean, that things will appear in ways that we don't know and don't expect, but appear in the world that, that then we do. We do, but we don't. That's living. That's life. That is life.
So what are the needs of the soul? And I don't know if I'm phrasing that correctly.
Yeah. The needs of the soul.
What is the life of the soul?
Yeah. It means to live bodily, every fiber of our being in a living knowing that we are not isolated within ourselves, that there's something more to ourselves than ourselves.
Yes.
But it's not knowledge. I mean, it is knowledge, but it has to be, I know that more than I know anything else. I don't, but it's not a belief.
Yeah.
And it's not that I believe in God or I believe in this or that. It's absolute knowing that who we are is more than we are.
So there can never be, in an absolute sense, we're never not ensouled, but we can have a deep poverty of awareness of that.
Yes. Yeah. That's right. That's really, really helpful because it's means it's something to be found that is already here.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that, and again, certainly in the prisons, many people do many things that can be knowledge that helps us into soul, but they can also be felt as ways of getting free without that. That for example, I mean, educational programs in prisons or yoga. Yoga can, or doing various things in they or heart practices.
Mm-hmm.
They can, when they're done as ways to, this will help me to live, they are actually instruments of not living.
Right.
That's the big one.
And that's sort of the difference between yoga behind the walls and yoga outside of the walls.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, you could say that. I mean, I see a lot of these guys, and it's almost like we've never spoken about this because it's an awkward thing to talk about, but there's something very rich inside. And then when they get out, despite what happened inside, there's a loss. Something's lost in this movement, in this, and so the context has changed, and they don't meet soul or the other in the yoga studio like they did in the activities building of the prison.
That's right.
Because now they're paying, and this thing between people is so different, and
right.
And it's almost like there's a taboo of talking about that because it makes it sound like, what, you want to be in prison? But
it's the problem of not realizing we moved prisons. We just moved out of one prison into another prison, in a far more tricky prison. I mean, because it uses the fantasy of freedom, but it is not. It's a prison.
Simone Weil says that the thing that's really puzzling about human beings is our preference for the fantasy to the real. Of course, she doesn't use soul language, which is a limitation for her. And in fact, for fantasy, she would use something more like imagination, but she doesn't mean it in the way we would mean it.
Mm-hmm.
But she's saying there's some sort of opportunity for unreality that is part of being human, and that at least now we've come to a point where we prefer these chimeras to the being of the world.
Yeah, that's helpful too. It's helpful in terms of seeing, really beginning to become aware of the kind of prison that we are presently within, because it's a prison of highly, highly, highly clever thought. And that makes us susceptible much more easily to being controlled by others, by the sign, like in the present, or we almost every day we hear, well, pay attention to the science.
Right.
But it's not even science. The problem is it isn't science. If you really, really hear a good scientist, a real scientist, like say in the virology area, Judy Muscovitz, for example. Oh my God, she's brilliant, 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 brilliant. And when you hear her, you actually feel free because it's true. She knows it so detailed that you're hearing something true. Your knowing is freedom in that sense. But most of the rest now, see, science has become one of the tools to use that looks like, well, if you let science do this, you'll get out of this.
Right.
Yeah.
If you let someone else do something,
Yeah.
you don't have to do it.
Yes, exactly. That's it, exactly. Right. Maybe we can look at this in relation, stay with this, but in terms of heart awareness. Like, if you have a difficulty and you stop and you let that difficulty drop into the heart, and the difficulty you don't feel that difficulty. What is experienced? What is experienced within the heart? What is heart experience like?
Well, there's a feeling and a kind of a movement, but it's not a word. It's an engagement or something.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And it's first felt as a kind of warmth.
Yeah.
A kind of warmth as if there's another world here.
Right.
It's another world. That is, and that way, in a certain, I think heart and heartfulness is for our time actually better than the word and even experience the word soul, because the word soul tends to be usurped already by religion and by various kinds of meditation that take you out of body.
Yeah.
they live in that split of body and matter is here and soul and spirit. I don't know, they're somewhere else. And to get to them, you have to leave body.
Mm-hmm.
But heartfulness is astounding because it announces our bodily being as the expression and expression of the divine. That is, human beings are, but everything. There is nothing that is not an expression of the divine. Otherwise, otherwise everything is an excretion.
Right.
God took a poop and left it there.
I think Luther actually said something like that.
Yeah, so did Jung, by the way. But that is, you see that difference between an expression and that warmth, that felt warmth is is the announcement of that expressing that we now can be aware of, provided provided the other that we've entered the silence which is necessary to be within heart, because like if you go out into the forests and you notice the silence is all around you, and the trees are full of silence, but they're not quite, it's not quite that way. It's that the trees and everything around you is coming out of the silence.
Mm-hmm.
We think it's already there. It's just already there. But if I get away from the hustle and bustle and tensions and anxieties of life and go out in the forest, I feel free. Well, we feel free because we're in the presence of everything in the process of being created. And that's that warmth.
And that's going to be different because different things are being created.
Yeah.
Well, the desert's different than the forest.
Or everything is whole. Everything is whole, but there are moments. There are moments where wholeness configures into the particularity that we call different things.
Right.
But they're not exactly different. They're the wholeness every moment reconfiguring itself into the multiple things. But the wholeness doesn't disappear. I mean, the mind can't know that.
Right.
The mind can't know that.
The wholeness doesn't disappear, but the wholeness does not remain the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Can we return to the problem, dropping the problem into the heart?
Yeah.
Because I just want to kind of fool around with that little space where this doesn't become a technique.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I take some sort of problem, relation problem, work problem into my heart. It becomes warm and kind of mushy or something. It does this, it churns or whatever this thing I'm trying to describe is. And I'm not doing something like changing, reframing, or changing the context or anything. What I'm really doing is I'm returning to the whole.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. That's this difference between, true freedom, and when that happens, you are within freedom. When you're within the heart, you're within freedom. If you're within heart, in order to get rid of the problem, then you're using an instrument, rather than being within freedom.
Right.
You're using an instrument to try to get back into life, which actually gets you into the prison, just another prison.
Right.
Us into, yeah.
I'm trying to get an answer to my problem yet again.
Yeah.
So, is there something about the human heart in relationship to the earth?
Oh, thank you. That is so. That's one of those gifts that came out of that didn't come out of your head. Yeah. Well, again, when in relation to America, the first thing that was lost was Earth, and I'm really convinced that Earth and heart, that Earth is a code word for heart. Just meaning take the H off the end, put it at the beginning, and you have heart. I'm sure that's right. I'm sure that's a code. If you're, and also, kind of tell a little kind of story that I watch every now and then one of these distractions from life, a program, an old series that's called Longmire.
Oh, yeah.
It's full of all kinds of incredible insight. In one of the programs, Longmire, who is a sheriff in Wyoming, is pursuing someone who has a serial killer who has been killing Native Americans and harvesting their organs to sell. And in pursuing him on foot, a huge snow comes and it's incredibly cold, and Longmire still pursues him. And comes to a place of nearly freezing, and just as he sees the person, the escaped prisoner who's escaped into another prison,
Mm-hmm.
by the way, and then he looks over and he sees a young Native American who is one of the Native Americans killed by this person. But we who are not so much in touch with our body, and which is, our bodies are earth. Our bodies are the same substance of earth. If we're in touch with if we experience embodying rather than I have a body, nobody has a body, and we're bodying every moment. Well, then we're within Earth, earthing herself every moment. Earths herself every moment, and herself is everything, including the dead, including, and that was not a vision. That's a presence of this person, this humus earth being, and it's creating as earth creating happening. Was that way out there?
No, I'm with you. Can't speak for the audience, but I'm right there.
I mean, do you see how all the things we've made up to try to account for things that can't be accounted for once you lose being a earth being?
So, is the human the being that can lose the sense of being an earth being?
Yes,
and the deer can't, and the ant can't, and the oak tree can't.
that's right. Exactly right. I mean, that's right. The human being is the only being that can know that it can lose what it is, and that's a that. But that's there. That capacity is there to lose the sense of who we are as the means by which we can begin to become aware of who we are. You see,
Yeah.
I mean, so the times were lost, like Dante knew, Dante's
Yeah.
wakes up and
Yeah.
found,
Dante, it was so weird. I was thinking about Dante before we talked, and I was thinking he teaches us that we wander in the disconnection to find the connection.
yeah, first line of the Divine Comedy. I awoke and found myself lost in the woods.
Yeah.
When I'm lost is when I'm awaking.
Yeah.
So that everything that all those other excursions there's a certain necessity to them. Where you get to the point of saying this is a really wrong decision, but that's a moment of possible entry into heart awareness, the portal. But then it's not that, well, now I know that I found it, I can do it, and it can be done in a week or so.
Right.
It becomes now a way of life that is life.
Yeah. So being lost may be more alive, at least in this time.
Yeah. Well, the problem in this time is we're lost and don't know we're lost.
Yeah.
That's what's trying to happen right now, is there's trying to be an awakening of, oh my gosh, we're lost and didn't know we were lost. That's called confusion. The wonderful word means with, fusion. That is awakening to the fusion of the known and the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
We act like we know where we are, and this time is one of confusion. That's why it's an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Astounding, not just individual, but a world opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like, we'll all be lost if that doesn't happen, but it goes to this higher level where everything becomes exponentially more difficult.
Mm-hmm. So beyond the overwhelming force involved, it seems to me that confusion at the heart of this place was when those beings that were that humus, which was with Earth, encountered those humans that were not with Earth. And the history of America, in a way, is just a elaboration of that, or
It also helps in terms of other places and other indigenous people. It's not the same as here. It's not the same as here. This is the land of freedom. This is the place that is intended to be a new heaven and the new earth. And the new heaven and the new, where this is the place, not like it's going to happen tomorrow, but that is the intent of this place. It's even the intent behind why all of the falseness and the misdirection has been exported to every other place in the world.
Yeah.
It means that in a certain way, now this is a world intention of the awakening of the freedom of the inner awareness.
And we can see this sort of it's not really knowledge. I guess it's an awareness, but it's kind of an explicit awareness of this place by various people's seers. I don't know how to put it, but that awareness has been that awareness is in the earth.
Yes, right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so humans.
Yeah. And that's the source of a lot of imaginations about America and all that, and why it draws people, but it's a force that draws people. Oh, that's the other thing about the heart awareness. Well, first little thing, I think that the heart awareness is simultaneously spiritual and physical. That's why I can say this is the place that can evolve into a new heaven and a new earth. That is simultaneously physical and spiritual. And the life that is true life of the heart awareness, the warmth that you see, where you, in that warmth, the body experiences the presence of the divine. But that force is far stronger than any other exterior force. That's why that mystery that we spoke of in the beginning of that happening in prison, where those people who held to the life of the soul, outer things happen because that force is stronger than anyone coming and saying, well, if you give me $5,000, I'll dig a hole and get you out. It's way stronger than that. It means that there's nothing more practical than heartfulness. But we have to be, it's like, talking like I can do this, I can't do it. We have to be ready to follow whatever presents itself rather than following what I think I need to get to.
Mm-hmm.
That's so interesting about our little fiasco this morning.
My fiasco. Yeah.
But it was.
So there's this power, but it is completely, I don't know, opposite or lacking. There's nothing utilitarian about it. It has no utility or usefulness.
It has no usefulness. The moment we take it up as something to use, it is no longer that power. But again, the following life, it's a matter of sensing and perceiving and intuition. It's not a matter of thinking it out. Can't be. And even our talking about it is not meant to do anything than to can be a reminder that, there's another place and it's right here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not meant to be, well, if you do this, look, well, I'm showing you what'll happen when you do this.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody says, well, I want to do that because I want that to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And often the most exciting thing is when somebody does it and they report back and something had happened that you've never heard before.
Yeah. Right. Oh, that's when that's the indicator.
So you had some thoughts. You had some words about all this in relationship to addiction and how we're living in the absence of heart. We are more in our wills and our thinking, and how that is fertile ground for something like addiction.
Yeah. It's tricky, very, very tricky, because what we call addiction is that there are individuals who want power, which typically takes the form of money, who make substances available to be used as if they could lead one into more life. It's not and that's the addiction. That's the addiction. It's not the substance at all that's addictive. I mean, I don't think now, never thought I'd say that exactly, but when you earlier said something, psychedelics for psychedelics, or that's just what they are. And if that could really, if one can do that, but not out of the sense of, I want to try that in order to experience something that is apparently really wonderful, all that. That's already now where they're lost and taken into being something that says, here is something that can, from the outside, that can give you more life than you otherwise can ever know.
Yeah.
So it's the falseness of the claim. That is, and it's almost, I guess, a momentary experience. Well, this is a lot more than life. Well, than I knew anyway. But that I'm just trying to say, what is addicting is something that is quite insubstantial.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're hearing this quite a bit now, not so much with psychedelics, but you're hearing people that would say things like this: the heroin addiction is not the trauma. The heroin addiction merely announces the trauma that's already been experienced.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing you're hearing. And then another thing you're hearing is I had to go through heroin addiction to realize how impoverished my existence was before heroin addiction. So I'm trying to think about, trying to, think of these substances as beings who are part of the whole, and that if they are approached as a way of getting somewhere, which is usually very often escaping, then they certainly will take you somewhere, and you probably don't want to go there ultimately. But if you can do something in recovery where you can really unpack what they were revealing, which would be a way of restoring them to the whole, then you too can become part of the whole. I never said these things before, but that's kind of what I'm working with here.
It's a way of saying, recovery can be a way of bodily coming to be able to livingly realize that my problems are mysteries that I didn't see as mysteries. I saw them as problems. And as a mystery is to be lived, not solved.
Yeah.
Problems are, so life is not a problem to be solved. It's a mystery.
Right.
But you described a way of finding the way into the mystery, which is the manner is what you call, what you're speaking of as recovery. But recovery means recovery of life, but not recovery of the old prison of life. Right.
Yeah, that's the problem with the word. Yeah. Because it implies I'm trying to get something back that I had.
Yes, life has also become a construction, not a reality. And that's why everything, again, why the work with the heart and why it all has to be bodily. It's got to be bodily work. It's got to be. Otherwise, no matter what kind of insights or awakenings or, the world and the earth will remain the same. That's the other thing about, if America is the mystery of the unfolding of the new heaven and the new earth, it's got to come out, it's got to become by our becoming earth. That's the only way that can happen. Can't happen by, we tried, that's why we're losing it. We tried to do it by power.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can you quote Solzhenitsyn again?
Yeah. He says, we cannot, in order to live, not live. Two different senses of live going on.
Yeah.
But again, it's kind of, we're speaking of things that are ways of living, not so much we can do something in order to live and then we'll be living.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, one other, since we're way out there, let's one little more statement. Oh, one. I'm interested always in this present world with the continual emphasis on me, 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 me. Well, that's because why that's happening is that is the one place that, in an odd way, is a refuge from being taken over by everything else. Mm-hmm. And so I have to have more hope in the me can be deepened into the heart, where there we'll find that, oh my goodness, there's no me, because we create each other as Earth is creating herself. Mm-hmm. There's no isolated me. There's no such thing.
No, that's right. And so, properly speaking, alienation and loneliness is, properly speaking, it's impossible. It's not that it isn't felt and experienced.
Yeah.
Well, I think we went into some deep water.
That was terrible. That was really deep water. Gosh, water is a whole other wonderfully important, since it's primary means. It's the primary presence of the creative feminine of Earth. Water. Anything you put in water, the molecules of whatever you put in water become incorporated into the water. Anything. It's called receptive creativity. Mm.
So when you take the problem into your heart, the element of water is definitely there.
Yeah, because it's in the body, in the flow of the. We're what, 80% water, 70? I think 70% water. That's really, really significant. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So, as a way of concluding, could you say a little bit about integral spiritual psychology and the work you are doing and how people might be able to find you?
Yeah, that's what we were doing. It was happening, and I don't think I probably want to try to talk about what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm around.
Okay. All right. Good enough.
Thank you for the beautiful conversation.
Oh, thank you so much.
It is so rare, goodness. As Goethe says, what's more valuable than gold? Conversation.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Mm-hmm. Life, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, my friend.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.